That being said, why do flamingos like standing on one leg? If you're wondering why scorpions glow in the dark, they're not alone. This goes beyond just because they enjoy doing it. Come with me and I'll show you all sorts of interesting scientific information about people, animals, and other things. Meet Apu. Now check out the palm in this picture. Is there anything out of the ordinary going on? We'll be looking at the tips of people's fingers. Only few families in the world have Apu's and his relatives' extremely unusual genetic abnormality. In other words, they can't be fingerprinted. One may have a dermatoglyphia if they have the aforementioned symptoms. A lot of people started hearing about it in 2007. You might think it's not that significant right now. Just consider how useful fingerprints might be in other situations. As a result, we use them to gain access to our phones. Use this as an example. Therefore, for example, fingerprints are one of the most often collected forms of biometric information. As fingerprinting becomes more widespread, Apu and his family was affected by this genetic disorder. Guess what happened when Bangladesh issued national ID cards to all adults in 2008? Fingerprints were needed to access the database. The staff was at a loss for what to do, so they issued the ID card with a stamp indicating that fingerprints were not required. In the same vein, fingerprints are now required to obtain a passport or a driver's license. The family members can now provide a medical report to the authorities, but they still face challenges even with the report in hand. For instance, in 2016, the government mandated that fingerprints be linked with a national database in order to purchase a SIM card. As SIM card providers refused to accept Apu's medical documentation, he used his mother's name while setting up his SIM card. To put it simply, they are not alone. A woman from Switzerland applied for US visa. Well, indeed it all was. Her photo ID was a dead ringer for her passport photo, but she couldn't prove her identity with fingerprints. Due to its heritable nature, this unusual trait may affect multiple members of the same family. Fortunately, it seems that the only thing this mutation will produce is a new life. Finding one's way around without leaving a fingerprint behind. Imagine the tower of when you hear. Very likely, it's tilting to one side. You may eventually need to revise that portrayal though. As time passes, the tower gradually returns to its original orientation. The tilting degree of the tower was not favorable for the structure's longevity, despite its unusual appearance. Built in the 12th century, it required some rectification work. It had a public presence and was subject to some form of reinforcement. Engineers placed tons of lead counterweights on the ground and excavated earth under the discovered. All the work paid off, as the tower is now almost 2 inches more vertical. I'd say that even goes that far. The tower reopened in 2001 after being reinforced to make it safer for visitors. Let's take a flight from Italy to Peru to visit Machu Picchu, the historic Inca citadel. Have you heard that it's next to impossible to see the main features of Machu Picchu? Yeah, so much of the infrastructure is buried beneath the ground that this is a fact. In spite of all the routes, chambers, and other fascinating stuff, the Inca don't want to be located. According to experts, this is nothing compared to what lies beneath the Innu-built deep structure's foundations. As an added bonus, they had a sophisticated drainage system built out of crushed rock. They adapt to the climate by doing so. Even without the engineering marvels, these numerous historical digs are worth a trip. Really, don't you think? The fourth is another modern-day fact concerning human innovations. Listen up, ice cream lovers. This is important, because Japanese researchers developed a non-melting ice cream. A chemical was found in strawberries by these investigators. This chemical molecule keeps ice cream cold even when exposed to the sun's 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Because of this additive, ice cream takes longer to melt than usual since water and oil have a harder time separating. Today we'll move on from the icy treat of ice cream to something even sweeter, but this time it comes from the animal realm. Many people take a cat's purr as a sign of contentment. Have you ever pondered the reasons for this misconception? The amount of cleansing is greater than we had anticipated. This is something that is partially innate and partly learned in cats. In addition to that, it can be used to help you relax and even heal yourself. Cats are known to purr when they are in pain or under stress. Newborn kittens have no sense of sight or hearing. There are still 2 weeks left of this. It's fascinating that they start making that familiar purring sound just days after birth. They went to tell mama where they went and what time they hope to be home. It turns out that cats keep doing this even as adults. That's why Kitty gets so excited every morning when breakfast is served. For the purpose of self-soothing, imagine a person crying. Our method of self-soothing in such a crisis is analogous to a cat's purring in times of stress. We can all benefit from the therapeutic effects of their purr, and they're kind people to boot. It has been suggested by some veterinarians that when one cat is hurt, the others will come and lie with it. Vets call it purr. The science behind this is unclear, but nonetheless, house cats purr at a frequency of roughly 26 Hz. This is a good number, being within the range where tissue regeneration is possible in the wild. Cats typically wait for their prey by lazing around. For the most part, they are occupied in this manner. Whereas purging may increase bone density in this case, the individuals included do not receive cannabis. Humans are not immune to the effects of vibration. Items for therapeutic use have been developed. Researchers have hypothesized that strapping a vibrating plate onto an astronaut's leg would aid in bone density maintenance for a long space journey. It's true that purring was never simply purring. The flamingos are the topic of the next one. The sound of one's own name might evoke two distinct mental images in most people. For starters, they're just one shade of pink, and more importantly, they tend to balance precariously on one foot. One of several hypotheses for why these birds sit on one leg is that doing so helps them balance. They do it for long periods of time, particularly during lofi, the Filipino word for nap, the midday rest or siesta. The vast majority of animal scientists subscribe to a single theory. This method of energy conservation is quite novel. To avoid tiresome muscle use, they stand on one leg. One-legged balancing is easier for them than two-legged balancing. The ligaments and tendons of their good leg make it easier for them to maintain their position. That old adage, "You can't have it off," holds true. Also true for flying creatures. Male birds, it seems, are either talented singers or very attractive. Researchers reached this result after looking at more than 500 kinds of colorful feathered flyers. Have a higher propensity to be able to sing, and those who look most like women but have less appealing plumage tend to be the best singers. Let's move on to puffins now that you know male birds can't be aesthetically and orally pleasing at the same time. They have been discovered to have fluorescent beaks. The beaks of Atlantic puffins glow fluorescent green when exposed to ultraviolet light. These creatures have UV vision as well, allowing them to recognize each other's glowing beaks in broad daylight. The ridges on their beak likely have a role in absorbing UV light and emitting it as a glow. The nature of this mystery entity, however, remains unknown to specialists. Maybe the flashing beaks help birds stand out to potential mates. You bet if you're up, avoid developing a gloomy beak at all costs. Animals like scorpions also glow brightly when exposed to UV light. As a result, experts believe that scorpions transform the UV light from the moon via fluorescence to aid in their nighttime eyesight. It's no surprise that the greenish-blue light they emit is also the color that they perceive most clearly. UV light brings out the best in stick insects, eggs, grasshoppers, and even some species of frog. I've started to speculate about what our lives might be like if we had the ability to see in UV light. For now, I must adjourn. If this video helped to satisfy your curiosity, please like and share it with others. Or, if you're still craving more, have an upbeat attitude and subscribe to Factastic for more amazing facts videos. See you in the next video.